released one of the worst wrestling games of all time in the form of WWE 2K20. 2K20 was an absolute disaster of a game, and with that, it became pretty obvious that something needed to change if the WWE 2K series wanted to keep going. The series had always been full of ups and downs from 2014 to 2019, but 2K20 was a disaster beyond anything that the series had ever seen before. As a result of 2K20's disastrous release, it was announced in 2020 that a 2K21 wouldn't be happening. Rather, Visual Concepts would get an extra year of development time to work on the next installment of the WWE 2K series. Well, 2K21 may have gotten cancelled, but it could have been worse. We could have gotten a shitty WWE All-Stars knockoff instead. You gotta be fucking kidding me. Fast forward to 2021, and after having spent most of that year playing 2K19 and not 2K Battlegrounds, it all came to a head at that year's WrestleMania when the next WWE 2K game was officially announced. That was also the day I realized my WWE 2K collection would forever look terrible on my shelf.
Hey man, that's a nice collection you got here. It's pretty impressive, but where's 2K21?
Get the fuck out. Now, the initial trailer for WWE 2K22 didn't show us a whole lot. I mean, hell, all we saw was Rey Mysterio hitting a 619 on Cesaro, but I think the trailer did a pretty good job of conveying that the game was shaping up to be much better than 2K20. Even the tagline for the game was "It hits different," implying that the game was going to be a pretty huge deal. Now, as the year went on and we'd start to see more and more gameplay and screenshots, it became pretty obvious that 2K22 was going to be nothing like we were used to. Fast forward to 2022 when the game launched, and man, it was so good. Released in March of 2022, WWE 2K22 more or less served as a reboot of the WWE 2K series, as everything we once knew about the games was thrown out the window in this one. Everything from the gameplay to the graphics and presentation was completely reworked for 2K22, and you can really tell that 2K and Visual Concepts learned a lot from the disaster that was 2K20. WWE 2K22 just had so many good things going for it. For instance, the new and improved gameplay felt buttery smooth and incredibly fun, the overhauled graphics were full of detail, and the game was centered around Rey Mysterio, which was awesome. Speaking of Rey, this cover art is absolutely incredible. I absolutely love what they did for 2K22's cover art, as it goes for this artistic approach that I feel has always been missing from the 2K game's cover art. I've always preferred the more stylized approach from games like WWE 12 and 13 compared to the 2K game's approach, which would always just feature the superstar placed in front of a logo and nothing more. With all that out of the way though, I think it's time we finally take a look at WWE 2K22 and find out what exactly made it so great.
I think for 24 it's more of the character.
Before I get into everything else 2K22 has to offer, I first want to talk about the gameplay because, wow, the gameplay in this game felt like a pretty huge upgrade from what we were used to with the previous 2K games. I remember playing 2K22 for the first time at launch and just being blown away by how fun the gameplay was. The gameplay of 2K22 is the perfect balance of the arcade and simulation style gameplay, as it manages to feel fast-paced and fluid while also maintaining that simulation feel at the same time. The big thing that made this game's gameplay so fun was the introduction of the combo system. You could pull off light combos, heavy combos, and even grapple combos, which really added a lot of depth to the gameplay. Along with combos came the addition of breaker moves, which basically served as a way of breaking up someone's combo to get out of it easier. The breaker moves do a really good job of shaking things up, since you have to make your combos more unpredictable to prevent your opponent from pulling one off. Each superstar has their own unique combos, and I think that's really what makes the gameplay feels so fun. Every superstar feels different and plays differently from one another. It actually gives you a reason to want to try out different superstars just to see how they play. I think what I love the most about the gameplay of 2K22 though is the fact that it brought back the freedom of the older games. This was the game where they finally got rid of the awful strict weapon placement system from 2K17 through 2K20 and just allowed you to place tables and ladders wherever you wanted. It feels so nice to be able to set up spots the way I want to without the game telling me that I have to place a table or a ladder in a specific spot. Extreme Rules matches in this game are a ton of fun because of the freedom this game gives you. They even added in 2 new weapons in the form of the stop sign and the hockey stick, which is pretty awesome. Another thing that made 2K22's gameplay so great was the addition of the stun meter, which once full allows you to just beat the shit out of your opponent and not have to worry about them reversing or getting out of it. It's honestly a pretty cool mechanic, and it's the little things like this that I feel significantly improve the gameplay gameplay experience and make it a lot more fun. Honestly though, that's about it as far as the gameplay goes. 2K22's gameplay, while simple, was still fun enough to give me 162 hours of fun and enjoyment. As I said, it's got that arcade feel to it, which I absolutely love, but it also has those simulation elements to it for the people that enjoy that. Enough about the gameplay though, how about we move on to the roster? Now before 2K22 even released, WWE released a shit ton of people from the roster, which had me worried that the final roster for 2K22 was gonna suffer as a result. Thankfully though, the roster ended up being pretty damn good. This game featured the likes of Chyna, Jim the Anvil, Neidhart, and so many other iconic legends and superstars. The already stacked roster got even better though with the DLC. I genuinely believe that the DLC for wrestling games peaked with this game because holy shit, LA Knight, 3 versions of The Undertaker, The Boogeyman, Doink the Clown, and even Yokozuna. Oh, and Machine Gun Kelly was DLC too. But who the hell cares? They made Mr. T DLC. Now you can't talk about the DLC in 2K22 without mentioning the incredible NWO DLC pack, since I gave you Eric Bischoff, a whole new arena, and of course the NWO versions of Hogan, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and X-Pac. Also, if you've ever wanted a wrestling game with 8 versions of Rey Mysterio, this game is you covered. Seriously, the fact that I can do an 8-man match with all the Rey Mysterios featured in this game is insane. Thing is though, I wish these would have just been alternate attires rather than each version of Rey being made into their own separate character. What makes it all the more confusing is that some of the attires are alt attires for certain versions of Rey. For instance, 09 Rey has a 2010 alt attire, yet 2011 Rey is its own separate character. 2K, what the hell were you thinking? You know, never in my life did I think I'd be getting paid to bitch about Rey Mysterio attires in a wrestling game, but here we are. As good as everything I just talked about is though, the one thing that I feel really made this game as great as it was the addition of custom renders. This is by far one of the greatest features we've ever gotten in a wrestling game, and it's thanks to this game that we even have it in the first place. Being able to upload custom renders for your CAWs is just awesome, and it allows for your custom superstars to fit in more easily with the rest of the roster. Plus, you could upload whatever image you wanted, so sometimes you'd have a pretty normal looking render like this, and then sometimes you'd end up getting a render like this. What the fuck? Moving on to the match types, these were the same match types that we had gotten since 2K18. There were no new match types added with this game, which honestly kind of sucked.
You could spend your time looking for the perfect side hustle, or you could go to Printful.com. Printful empowers you.
I would have hoped for at least one new match type, with this being a reboot of the series and all, but while they didn't add any new match types, I will say they did at least update a few to make them more fun. I already talked a bit about how Extreme Rules matches were made more fun in this game due to the lack of restrictions on weapon placement, but something I didn't talk about was the updated backstage brawls. Now I'm going to be honest, as much as I enjoy the backstage brawls in this game with the all-new balcony that you can throw your opponent off of, I will admit I do miss the backstage brawl that was in 2K19 and 2K20, since those allowed you to free roam and go wherever you wanted backstage. Now yes, they've made this backstage area better in 2K23 and 24, but in 22, this area just didn't have a whole lot going for it. It was very bare bones and lacked the interactivity of the backstage brawl areas in the previous games. Moving on to the arena selection, I will say, while it's not horrible, it is lacking in a lot of ways. First of all, there's hardly any Attitude Era arenas. Most of the arena selection Attitude Era wise consists of WCW arenas, which is fine. If you're gonna do WCW arenas, at least throw in a 1997 Raw arena to balance it out or something. I do like the fact that we got a few Ruthless Aggression arenas in the game, like the WrestleMania 21 and 2005 Raw arenas, but other than that, there's not a whole lot on offer here. As I said, it's not horrible, it's just fine. It gets the job done, and the arena selection could have been much worse. As lacking as the arena selection is though, you can at least use the Thunderdome for some arenas, so at least it has that going for it. Well, now that I've talked about the gameplay and whatnot, I think it's time we talk about the extra modes 2K22 had on offer, starting with My Faction. Well, since I can't talk about my faction, let's take a look at a mode that actually works. That, of course, being Showcase mode. When it was announced that this game's 2K Showcase was going to be centered around Rey Mysterio, I was honestly pretty excited. Then the game came out, and I was left disappointed. The Showcase in this game is legitimately the most underwhelming part of the whole game, and it sucks because it could have been a lot better. I like a lot of the matches that are on offer in the mode, and I love the fact that it's not overly long. The main problem I have with it though is that it just doesn't feature entrances at all. There's no commentary. Instead, it's replaced with this shitty orchestral non-copyright royalty-free music, and all the matches are bogged down by slingshot technology. Essentially, all slingshot tech does is splice real footage of the match in with the in-game cutscenes, and it completely ruins each match. Honestly, slingshot tech just looks pretty pathetic when you compare it to something like the fully animated cutscenes from the Attitude Era mode in WWE 13 from 2012. Hell, even Visual Concepts themselves had fully animated cutscenes for each match in the 4 Horsewomen Showcase in 2K20. If I want to watch the actual match, I just go on Peacock and watch it there. This is a wrestling video game, not the WWE Network. Moving on to Universe mode, yeah, it's about what you would expect. Make and run your own shows the way you want them to be. It's pretty much the same exact Universe mode that has gone unchanged for years. They did add Superstar mode though, which allows you to pick a superstar and focus on just them throughout the Universe mode. And much like the normal Universe mode, Superstar mode can get boring pretty quickly. Not talking about My Career or My Rise as they call it in this game, it's fine. I know I've said before that I enjoy when a My Career has a set story for you to follow, but I don't know, man. This game's story for the My Career just never really hooked me. This game was the first to offer both a women's and men's My Career path, which was cool to see, but like I said, they just never really hooked me. The My Career does at least have voice acting, but the problem is that the story is just not very engaging. The game gives you a list of different stories and paths you can go down, but none of them really connect to each other. It honestly just feels like a checklist of things to do rather than an actual story. And with that brings us to the last mode there is to talk about, which happened to be the big new addition to 2K22, GM mode. What the hell happened here? GM mode for the longest time has always been one of the most requested modes to make a return in the WWE games after it was removed in SVR09. And when they finally brought it back for 2K22, it was just okay. It wasn't nearly as good as people expected it to be, and for being a modern reincarnation of GM mode, it was pretty pathetic. There just wasn't a whole lot to do in it. It lacked a lot of the depth that even the GM mode in SVR07 had. This game's GM mode never featured mid-card titles either, which is just insane, and the mode as a whole just felt bland. As barren as the mode is though, I will at least say that I am glad they brought it back for this game. They didn't need to bring back GM mode, but they did anyways, and it showed they were at least listening to us. All in all, the extra modes is where 2K22 just kind of takes a nosedive, as they really don't offer anything all that special. They're fine, they get the job done, and knowing now just how much they expanded on all of these modes in 23 and 24, it's pretty easy to just excuse all of these as starting points for what would come later.
I can't wait.
Overall, WWE 2K22 was a pretty damn good WWE game for what it was worth. Sure, the modes might not have been all that great, and they might not have added any new match types to the game, but I think Visual Concepts at least deserves some credit for the incredible work they did on this game. You have to admit, this game was a hell of a lot better than what we got with 2K20, and I think the improvements made with the gameplay alone was enough to cement this game as one of the greats. Now, is it as good as Rumble Roses? No.
Oh my god. Why would you put that in there? Could have been worse. It could have been Here Comes the Pain. Anyways, we're gonna get out of here. I got one more video I'm gonna do, and then probably go edit the videos, and then I'm gonna go find me a girlfriend, y'all. Now I'm not kidding, bro. I got a couple of dating apps. I'm gonna go on there and just swipe, bro. Like, that's where we at, bro. I got a whole lot of time on my hands. I don't have to find a girlfriend. Just somebody